So, you probably have a smartphone in your pocket, maybe a smart speaker on your counter, and a TV that's smarter than most people I know. But how did we get here? It wasn't an overnight jump. The tech that fills our homes today is built on layers and layers of innovation, going back further than you might think. Let's take a journey through time to see how household gadgets in the USA have evolved from the 1800s to today. It's a fascinating story of solving problems, from simply keeping food cold to connecting our entire lives to the cloud. This isn't just a history lesson, it's about understanding the why behind the tech we take for granted. Each new gadget wasn't just a shiny new object, it fundamentally altered how people spent their time, how they worked, and how they lived. We'll break it down by era, showing how each new invention changed the way we live, paving the way for the next big thing. We'll look at the first-gen versions, the clunky, sometimes weird-looking originals, and trace their lineage all the way to the sleek, powerful, and interconnected devices we use every single day. It's a story of iteration, from manual labor to mechanical assistance, from analog to digital, and now from digital to smart and automated. We'll see how a simple idea, like a better way to cook a meal, eventually leads to a smart oven you can preheat from your car. The DNA of your robot vacuum can be traced back to a clunky machine from over 100 years ago. It's a pretty wild timeline, so let's get into it. Alright, so let's start at the beginning, or close to it. Before the 1820s, cooking was a serious chore. You're talking open hearths, wood stoves, coal stoves, all things that were messy, hard to control, and honestly, pretty dangerous. You couldn't just turn a dial for medium-high heat. It was a constant battle of adding fuel, managing embers, and dealing with smoke. It was a full-time job just to make dinner. So, the introduction of the gas stove was, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, a complete game-changer for the kitchen. The first gas stoves started showing up in the 1820s, but they were pretty niche, a luxury item. It wasn't until gas lines became more common in cities later in the century that they really started to take off. Suddenly, you had a source of heat that was instant on, instant off. You had control. You could bake and roast with a level of precision that was basically science fiction before. This wasn't just a new gadget, it was a fundamental shift in culinary technology, freeing up immense amounts of time and labor, mostly for women, who were traditionally tasked with managing the household. Flash forward to today and the lineage is crystal clear. We have gas ranges with incredible precision, but we also have electric cooktops, induction surfaces that use magnets to heat the pan directly, and air fryers built right into the oven. The simple knob has been upgraded to a digital touchscreen. You can get Wi-Fi connected stoves that let you preheat the oven on your way home from work. But it all comes back to that core idea that started almost 200 years ago, making cooking faster, cleaner, and more precise. The foundation was laid, and we've just been building on it ever since. So after you've cooked the food, you've got to look presentable. And for a long time, that meant ironing. But irons before the late 1800s were literally just slabs of metal that you had to heat up on that stove we just talked about. They were called sad irons, probably because using them was a sad, laborious experience. You'd have a couple of them on the go, one heating while you used the other, and you had to be careful not to get soot on your clean clothes. It was inefficient and kind of a pain. Then, in 1882, Henry Seeley White patented the electric iron. This was a huge leap. Instead of an external heat source, the iron heated itself using electricity. No more fire, no more soot, just a consistent, controllable temperature. This was one of the very first electric household appliances to really find a market. It took a while for homes to get wired for electricity, of course, but as they did, the electric iron became an essential tool. It represented a new kind of freedom, the freedom from the stove, and a new level of convenience in personal care. Today's irons are direct descendants, but they've been seriously upgraded. The core tech is the same, a heated plate, but now they're packed with features. We have auto shutoff, which is a lifesaver for anyone who's ever had that "did I leave the iron on" panic moment. They have complex steam systems for getting out stubborn wrinkles, non-stick ceramic or titanium sole plates, and precise digital settings for every type of fabric, from delicate silk to heavy cotton. It's the same problem, just solved with a century's worth of refinement and safety features. Okay, let's talk about keeping food from going bad. Before refrigeration, this was a massive daily challenge. You had root cellars, you had salting, you had smoking, all ancient techniques for preservation. In the 1800s, the big innovation was the icebox. This was basically an insulated wooden cabinet. To keep it cold, you'd get a huge block of ice delivered by an iceman and put it in a special compartment at the top. Cold air would sink, cooling the food below. It was a simple, non-mechanical solution. The icebox was revolutionary. For the first time, families could keep milk, butter, and meat fresh for days instead of hours. This changed diets, it changed how people shopped, and it reduced food waste dramatically. But it had its limitations. You were dependent on the iceman's delivery schedule, the ice melted, and you had to deal with the drainage pan. It was a great step forward, but it was still a manual system that required constant upkeep. It was a passive device, not an active one. And that's the key difference that leads us to today. The evolution of the icebox is the modern refrigerator, which uses a compressor and refrigerants to actively create cold. But now, we're in the era of the smart fridge. These things are basically kitchen command centers. They have touchscreens, internal cameras, so you can see what you need while you're at the grocery store, and they can connect to your Wi-Fi to create shopping lists or even order food for you. Some can even suggest recipes based on the ingredients you have inside. It's a direct line from a simple insulated box with a block of ice to a networked AI-powered food management system. Laundry, nobody's favorite chore, right? And for centuries it was brutally difficult. We're talking washboards, buckets, and just hours of manual scrubbing. It was an all-day, physically demanding task. Early attempts at mechanizing it involved these hand-cranked devices that were honestly, at best, only slightly better than doing it by hand. The real breakthrough, the one that set the stage for everything that followed, was the introduction of electricity into the process. This was a huge turning point. In 1908, the Thor washing machine was introduced by the Hurley Machine Company of Chicago. It's widely credited as the first electric-powered washing machine. It had a galvanized tub and an electric motor that would churn the clothes. Sure, it was clunky, loud, and probably not very safe by today's standards, but for its time, it was a miracle. It took a process that required hours of intense physical labor and automated the hardest part. The washing machine didn't just clean clothes, it actually gave people back a huge chunk of their time. Fast forward to today, and the evolution is, well, pretty staggering. We've gone from a simple electric motor to these incredibly complex machines. We have high-efficiency front loaders that use just a fraction of the water and energy. They have dozens of custom cycles for different fabrics, steam functions to sanitize and de-wrinkle, and load sensors to optimize performance. And now, of course, they're smart. You can start, stop, and monitor your laundry from an app on your phone, get a notification when the cycle is done, and even connect it to your smart assistant. It's the same core function, but now with layers upon layers of efficiency, convenience, and connectivity. Keeping floors clean has always been a bit of a battle. Brooms and dustpans just moved dirt around, and those old rug beaters would kick up clouds of dust. The fundamental problem was actually removing the dirt, not just relocating it. So, the idea of using suction to solve this problem was a pretty big leap. Early versions were massive, cumbersome contraptions. Some were even horse-drawn and powered by gasoline engines, serving entire buildings through a system of hoses. Not exactly practical for the average home, right? The invention of the first portable domestic vacuum cleaner is often credited to James Murray Spangler, a janitor, in 1907. He used a soap box, a fan motor, a silk pillowcase, and a broom handle to create a device to help with his asthma. He sold the patent to his cousin's husband, William Hoover. And the rest, as they say, is history. The Hoover became synonymous with vacuuming. These early electric models, which became popular in the 1920s, were loud and heavy, but they did something revolutionary. They pulled dirt and dust out of the home for good. Now just look at where we are. The upright vacuum is still a staple, but it's lighter, more powerful, and often cordless, running on powerful lithium-ion batteries. We've got canister vacs, stick vacs, and handhelds for every possible niche. But the biggest evolution is obvious robotics. Companies like iRobot took the core concept of suction and combined it with mapping, navigation, and sensor technology. Now a small disk can autonomously clean your entire house, map its layout, avoid obstacles, and even empty its own dustbin. It's really the ultimate expression of the original goal, cleaning the floor with minimal human effort. So far, All the gadgets we've talked about have been about solving a physical problem: cooking, cleaning, cooling. The radio was different. It was about information and entertainment. It was about connecting the home to the outside world in real time, without wires. Before the 1920s, if you wanted news or music, you had to read a newspaper or play an instrument or a phonograph. It was an active, intentional process. The radio changed that dynamic completely. The 1920s was the decade the radio exploded into American households. Suddenly you could just turn a dial and be connected to a live broadcast. You could hear the news as it happened, listen to a baseball game from hundreds of miles away, or enjoy music and drama shows with your family. The radio became the centerpiece of the living room, the hearth around which the family gathered. It was the first electronic mass medium, creating a shared cultural experience across the entire country. It was, in a way, the original social network. Think about what the radio really was: a box in your living room that brought you audio content on demand from the airwaves. Now, think about a smart speaker. The parallels are actually pretty striking. Today, devices like the Amazon Echo or Google Nest are the new centerpiece. You use your voice instead of a dial, and you're pulling content from the internet instead of radio waves, but the core function is identical. You ask for news, music, podcasts, or the weather. It's the evolution of the radio, just with a massively expanded library and an interactive voice-controlled interface. It's really the radio's direct descendant. If the radio brought the world's sounds into our homes, the television brought its sights. After World War II, TV technology, which had been in development for decades, was finally ready for the consumer market. The 1950s saw an explosion in television ownership. It was a monumental shift. The living room, which had been oriented around the radio, was now reoriented around this new glowing box. It was magical, captivating, and it completely changed family life and culture. These early TVs were bulky pieces of furniture with tiny, low-resolution, black and white screens. You had a handful of channels to choose from, and programming ended late at night with a test pattern, but the impact was immense. It created an even more powerful shared cultural experience than the radio. Everyone watched I Love Lucy, or saw Elvis on The Ed Sullivan Show. It became the dominant medium for news, entertainment, and advertising for the next half-century. It was the window to the world. Today, that window is a lot bigger and a lot clearer. The evolution from those small CRT boxes to what we have now is one of the most dramatic in tech. We went from black and white to color, then to HD, and now 4K and even 8K resolution is standard. The technology has shifted from bulky CRTs to slim LCDs, and now to stunning OLED and QLED panels with perfect blacks and incredible color. And of course, they're smart. The TV is no longer just a receiver for broadcasts, it's an internet-connected hub for streaming services, gaming, and casting content from your phone. It's the same concept, just infinitely more capable. The post-war era of the 1950s and 60s wasn't just about TVs, it was a time of economic prosperity and a focus on convenience in the home. This led to a boom in small kitchen appliances. While things like stand mixers had been around for a while, this is when they, along with blenders, really became household staples. These gadgets promised to make cooking easier, faster, and more sophisticated. The idea was to bring professional-level tools into the home kitchen. The stand mixer, like the iconic KitchenAid, could knead dough and whip cream with ease, automating tasks that were tiring and time-consuming. The blender, popularized by brands like Oster and Waring, could liquefy fruits and vegetables, making smoothies, soups, and sauces in seconds. These weren't just tools, they were symbols of a modern, efficient lifestyle. They were heavily marketed as ways to save time and effort, fitting perfectly into the suburban dream of the era. They were single-purpose machines, but they were very good at what they did. Today, that single-purpose philosophy has evolved into a multifunctional one. Why have a separate blender, food processor, and dough mixer when you can have one device that does it all? Modern blenders like those from Vitamix or Ninja are incredibly powerful machines with multiple attachments and pre-programmed settings for everything from smoothies to hot soup to nut butter. They have more powerful motors, more durable materials, and smarter designs. They've taken the original promise of convenience and amplified it, consolidating an entire shelf of gadgets into one powerful, versatile unit. So this is one of the more interesting origin stories. The microwave oven was a complete accident. In 1945, a Raytheon engineer named Percy Spencer was working on radar technology when he noticed a candy bar in his pocket had melted. He realized the magnetron tube was emitting microwaves that were heating the food. This happy accident led to one of the most revolutionary kitchen appliances of the 20th century. It was a fundamentally new way to cook. The first commercial microwave, the Radarange, was released in 1947. It was enormous, weighing nearly 750 pounds, standing over 5 feet tall and costing thousands of dollars. It was clearly not for home use. It wasn't until 1967 that Amana introduced a countertop model that was affordable and practical for households. Even then, people were skeptical. Cooking with invisible waves? It seemed like science fiction, but the sheer speed and convenience were undeniable, especially for reheating leftovers and defrosting food. Today the microwave is a ubiquitous, almost assumed part of any kitchen. The core magnetron technology hasn't changed all that much, but everything around it has. They are smaller, more powerful, and much cheaper. We have inverter technology for more even cooking, sensor cooking that automatically adjusts the time based on steam, and combination ovens that can also act as convection ovens or air fryers. And yes, you can now get smart microwaves that you can control with your voice via Alexa, or scan a barcode on a frozen dinner and have the microwave automatically set the correct time and power level. From a melted candy bar to a voice-controlled cooking machine. For decades, if you wanted to watch a movie, you went to the theater. If you wanted to watch a TV show, you had to be there when it aired. You were on the broadcaster's schedule. The VCR, which became a household staple in the late 70s and 80s, completely shattered that model. For the first time, you had control. You could record a show to watch later, a concept we now call time shifting. You could also rent or buy movies on VHS tapes and watch them whenever you wanted. This was a massive shift in how we consumed media. The living room became a personal movie theater. The Friday night trip to Blockbuster became a cultural ritual. At the same time, the cassette player and later the Walkman did the same thing for music. Instead of being tied to a radio or a home stereo, you could create your own mixtapes and take your music with you. It was about personalization and portability. It put the consumer in the driver's seat in a way that had never been possible before. Of course, this technology feels ancient now. The physical media, the bulky tapes, the rewinding, the tracking adjustments, it was all replaced. First by DVDs, which offered better quality and convenience, and then completely by the internet. Today, streaming services like Netflix, Spotify, and YouTube are the direct descendants of the VCR and cassette player. The core desire is the same on-demand access to a vast library of content. We've just eliminated the physical object. Your Spotify playlist is the modern mixtape. Binge-watching a series on Netflix is the modern version of recording a season on VHS tapes. The hardware is gone, but the behavior it created is more ingrained than ever. For centuries, telling time meant looking at hands moving in a circle. Analog clocks were the undisputed standard, from grandfather clocks to wristwatches. It's an intuitive system, but it's also an interpretation. You're reading a position, not a number. The 1970s and 80s introduced a major shift with the widespread adoption of the digital clock. Suddenly, time wasn't something you interpreted. It was a precise number staring back at you, often in glowing red or green LEDs. This might seem like a small change, but it represented a larger cultural shift towards digital information. The blinking 12 o'clock on a VCR became a famous symbol of a technology that people owned, but didn't fully master. Digital alarm clocks with snooze buttons became a bedside staple, replacing the jarring bells of their analog predecessors. Digital wristwatches, like the classic Casios, offered not just the time, but also stopwatches and alarms, packing more functionality into a smaller space. It was a move towards discrete, numerical data. The evolution from that point is all about adding connectivity. That simple bedside alarm clock has morphed into a smart display like the Echo Show or Nest Hub, which not only tells you the time, but can show you your calendar, the weather, and control your smart home. The digital wristwatch has evolved into the smartwatch. Today's Apple Watch or Galaxy Watch is a powerful computer on your wrist that tracks your health, delivers notifications, makes payments, and, yes, tells you the time with a virtually infinite number of customizable digital and analog faces. The simple number has become a gateway to all your information. Before the 1970s, video games were things you could only find in arcades or university computer labs. The idea of playing a video game in your own living room was pure fantasy. That all changed with the arrival of the first home video game consoles. While the Magnavox Odyssey was first, it was Atari and its video computer system, later called the 2600, released in 1977, that truly ignited the home gaming revolution. The Atari 2600 brought arcade hits like Space Invaders and Pac-Man into the home. The graphics were just blocks of color, the sounds were simple beeps and boops, but it was captivating. It turned the television from a passive viewing device into an interactive playground. It created a new form of entertainment and a new industry. It was the genesis of the gamer, the first time that interactive digital entertainment became a mainstream household activity. It laid the groundwork for everything to come. The evolution in this space is just insane to look at. We've gone from 8-bit sprites to photorealistic, ray-traced worlds in 4K resolution. The simple joystick has evolved into complex controllers with haptic feedback and motion controls. Today's consoles, like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, are incredibly powerful computers dedicated to gaming, offering immersive experiences that were unimaginable in the Atari era, and now we're pushing into virtual reality with headsets like the MetaQuest, which puts you inside the game entirely. It's a journey from moving a single pixel on a screen to inhabiting a complete digital universe. For most of its history, the computer was this colossal machine that filled entire rooms, owned by universities, governments, or massive corporations. The idea of having one in your home, that was just honestly kind of absurd. But then, in the late 1970s and 80s, we saw the birth of the personal computer, with machines from Apple, Commodore, and IBM. Still, it was really the 1990s, with the arrival of Microsoft Windows and much more affordable hardware, that the PC truly became a household appliance. The PC back then was, well, a beige box with a big CRT monitor that took up half your desk. It was a productivity machine. You could use it for word processing, spreadsheets, and maybe some basic games like Solitaire or Minesweeper. It was a tool for work and education, a digital filing cabinet and typewriter rolled into one. It was powerful, but, it was also stationary. It created this specific place in the house, the computer desk, where digital tasks were done. Now, that beige box has exploded into a whole ecosystem of devices. The core functionality of a personal computer is no longer tied to a desk. We have incredibly powerful laptops that outperform the desktops of just a few years ago. We have tablets like the iPad that offer a touch-first interface for content consumption and creativity. And most profoundly, we have the smartphone, which is basically a supercomputer that fits in our pocket. So the idea of a personal computer is no longer about a single box. It's about a constellation of devices that hold our digital lives, accessible from anywhere. So you've got your PC. Now, how do you connect it to the world? In the 1990s, the answer was the dial-up modem. This was the device that translated digital data from your computer into sound, sent it over your phone line, and made that iconic series of screeches, beeps, and hisses. It was slow, painfully slow by today's standards. Downloading a single song could take like 10 minutes, and you couldn't use the phone at the same time. But it was magical. It was the gateway to the World Wide Web, email, and AOL chat rooms. The evolution here was all about speed and convenience. We moved from dial-up to broadband technologies like DSL and cable, which offered always-on connections that were dramatically faster. This changed the internet from something you occasionally visited to something that was a constant presence in the home. But you were still tethered by an Ethernet cable. The next great leap was cutting that cord. The introduction of Wi-Fi routers in the early 2000s untethered the internet from the computer desk. Now, the internet could be anywhere in your house. Laptops became truly portable. This paved the way for every smart device that followed. Today, Wi-Fi isn't just about connecting your laptop. It's the backbone of the entire smart home. We've gone from slow dial-up to multi-gigabit fiber optic connections. We have mesh Wi-Fi systems that cover every square inch of our homes in a seamless, powerful signal. The modem and router have evolved from a simple gateway for one computer to the central nervous system for dozens of connected devices, from your TV to your thermostat to your doorbell. Mobile phones existed before the late 1990s, but they were car phones or massive brick phones that were expensive and, honestly, not very common. It was in the late 90s and early 2000s, with devices like the Nokia 3310, that mobile phones became truly personal, mainstream gadgets. Their primary purpose was simple, making calls and sending text messages on the go. They had long battery life, they were nearly indestructible, and they untethered our conversations from the wall. The function was narrow, but the impact was huge. It changed social dynamics, it changed our sense of safety and availability. But it was still just a communication device. The revolution came when the mobile phone merged with the personal computer and the internet. The launch of the first iPhone in 2007 is the inflection point. It wasn't just a phone, it was a powerful, pocket-sized computer with a multi-touch screen and a connection to the internet. It was the apps that changed everything. Today, the smartphone is arguably the most important piece of technology we own. Calling is probably one of the least common things we do with it. It's our camera, our navigation system, our music player, our wallet, and our portal to all information. And crucially, it has become the universal remote control for the smart home. From a single device in your pocket, you can see who's at your door, adjust the temperature, turn on the lights, and start the washing machine. It's the culmination of a century of technological evolution, all converging into a single slab of glass and metal. For years, the main way we interacted with technology was through our hands, typing on a keyboard, clicking a mouse, tapping a screen. The next frontier was voice. While voice commands existed in limited forms, it was the launch of Amazon's Echo speaker with the Alexa assistant in 2014 that brought a truly capable ambient voice assistant into the mainstream home. It was a cylinder you could talk to, and it would talk back. The idea was to create a computer that you could interact with from across the room, hands-free. At first, the use cases were simple. Play music, set timers, ask for the weather, answer trivia questions. It was a novelty for many, a more convenient radio and alarm clock. But its true power was in its ability to learn new skills and, most importantly, to integrate with other devices. This was the missing link, the central brain that could unite all the disparate smart gadgets in a home. Now, smart assistants like Alexa, Google Assistant, and Siri are built into our speakers, our phones, our TVs, and even our cars. They are the software layer that makes the smart home work seamlessly. You don't need to open 10 different apps to manage your home. You can just say goodnight and have the assistant lock the doors, turn off the lights, and lower the thermostat. It's a move away from manual control towards conversational commands and automation, making the technology in our homes feel less like a collection of gadgets and more like an integrated, helpful system. The thermostat has been a quiet, unassuming fixture on our walls for decades. You had a simple dial or a slider to set the temperature, and that was it. It was a set-it-and-forget-it device, but it was dumb. It didn't know if you were home or away, what time of day it was, or what the weather was like outside. It just tried to maintain one temperature, wasting a lot of energy heating or cooling an empty house. The revolution here came from a company called Nest, founded by former Apple engineers, which introduced the Nest Learning Thermostat in 2011. It was a beautiful object with a simple, intuitive interface, but its real innovation was on the inside. It used sensors and algorithms to learn your schedule. It knew when you left for work and would automatically turn down the heat or AC to save energy. It knew when you were on your way home and would make sure the house was comfortable when you arrived. This was a major shift from manual control to automated intelligent optimization. Today, smart thermostats from companies like Nest and Ecobee are a cornerstone of the smart home. You can control them from your phone from anywhere in the world. They can use remote sensors to balance the temperature in different rooms. They can even respond to data from the local power grid to reduce energy use during peak demand hours. It's a simple idea, controlling the temperature, but executed with a layer of intelligence that saves money and increases comfort without you having to think about it. Home security used to be a complicated and expensive affair. It meant professional installation, long-term contracts with a monitoring company, and a system that was largely invisible until an alarm went off. You had very little direct interaction with it or visibility into what was happening at your home when you weren't there. The technology was closed off and inaccessible to most people. The internet and the smartphone completely changed this landscape. Companies like Ring, with its video doorbell, and Nest, with its security cameras, made home security accessible, affordable, and interactive. The video doorbell was a genius idea. It combined a doorbell, a motion sensor, a camera, and a two-way speaker into one device that you could install yourself. Suddenly, you could see and talk to whoever was at your front door, whether you were in the living room or on vacation 1,000 miles away. Today, smart security is a whole ecosystem. You have indoor and outdoor cameras that can distinguish between a person, a package, and a passing car. You have motion sensors, door and window sensors, and smart locks that all connect to your phone. All the footage can be stored in the cloud for you to review later. It's a system that's not just reactive, sounding an alarm, but proactive, giving you constant awareness and peace of mind. It has turned every homeowner into their own security chief with a live command center right in their pocket. So, that was a whirlwind tour. We went from a simple cast iron stove to an oven you can talk to, from a block of ice in a box, to a fridge that can order your groceries, and from a single doorbell to a whole network of cameras that you can view from your phone. From gas stoves to smart homes, each era brought new gadgets that changed daily life, solving old problems and creating new possibilities. Each step wasn't just about a new product, it was about giving us more control, more convenience, and more time. The common thread through all of this is iteration and connection. First, we electrified manual tasks. Then, we made them digital and more precise. And now, we're connecting them all together through the internet and controlling them with the supercomputer in our pocket, or just the sound of our voice. The home is becoming less of a collection of individual tools and more of an integrated, responsive environment. The line between technology and the home itself is getting blurrier every year. It's a wild trajectory and it makes you wonder what's next. More AI, more automation, homes that anticipate our needs before we even know them ourselves. It's fun to speculate, but I'm curious to hear from you. Looking back at this whole timeline, which gadget do you think made the biggest impact? Was it the washing machine freeing up a whole day of labor, the TV changing culture, or the smartphone connecting everything? Let us know in the comments. It's been Adil. Peace.
Ready for a history adventure? Join our community. Subscribe to World History, smash that like, share with friends, and drop your thoughts below. Let's make history together. See you in the comments.